As a teenager, I was always a very shy, introverted, a young man, public speaking, presenting. I stayed well away from that. That was just not me. I found myself at this place where people were practicing public speaking. The start is always the hardest. If you can start well, you'll continue well.
Kyle Murtagh, from shy introvert to European champion of public speaking.
Author of the 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking, Kyle's mission is simple: give people the tools to feel confident anytime they speak, empowering them for life.
He transformed his fear into mastery and now helps others do the same through his company, Confidence by Design.
No matter what path you take in life, whether you decide to be an employee, run your own business, or anything in between, at some point, public speaking is going to find you. They can deal with a little bit of glitching in video, but they can't deal with bad sound. Figuring out the emotion you want the audience to feel, and then allowing your voice to play that song. Those who gesture more in presentations are, number one, more engaging, but number two, audiences are able to understand their messaging a lot more. Now, hook is important in anything you do.
Probably would work very well in sales as well.
Every form of communication, if you start with a hook, you're going to get people more engaged, and it's going to be a better conversation.
The 5 pillars of effective public speaking: body language, voice, structure, clarity, impact.
They think it's too much. They think it's something that you have to take years to do. It's really not. You can implement a lot of these things very fast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another podcast. My name is Bogdan Bratis from The Pod Files. Today we have a special guest, and it's quite a funny one because we had the first episode recorded. It was actually the first episode we recorded here in the studio, and unfortunately some of the files went missing. They weren't displaying anymore any footage, and we had to reschedule the recording and have another take on this. So this shows you that even the professionals get it wrong sometimes, and that's fine, because what you want to do is keep trying and make it happen. And Kyle was kind enough to actually come back to the podcast and have another go on this, and hopefully it's going to be an even better interview. So Kyle Murtagh, he's a public speaking coach. He's an amazing author as well. I actually read his book, The 5 Pillars of Public Speaking. And we're going to talk about public speaking today. And this is really important. Podcasting, when you're a podcaster, you need to have these skills. And when you go on stage as well, networking, when you do any kind of like public speaking, you need to have these skills. And Kyle is going to teach us how to become better public speakers. Welcome, Kyle, back to the podcast. How's it going?
Yes, it's going good. And I think the first time was so nice in our episode, we had to do it twice, didn't we?
Oh, yeah,
that's
100%.
the way. But this time we're back better than ever. Going to do an even better episode than before. However, I'm still laying claim to being the first guest in the studio.
Yeah.
Let that be known to all.
100%. I was actually just talking with my partner saying like, oh, because Kyle was the first guest to come in the studio, we definitely need to have this as the first episode. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the first episode or maybe later on. Depends how fast the production from the SaaSpot team is moving with this episode. But let's start discussing about your first experience with public speaking. You remember... you had this question and you had to answer it. If a zombie apocalypse happened in Glasgow, where would you go? So what would be the answer today for this question?
Well, my answer back then was 2 words: the pub.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good answer. This time, I would probably go with that again, but instead of sitting down and having my head in my hands, just feeling awful about myself, I would probably continue speaking. And I would talk about who I'd have in the pub with me, how we would fortify the pub. When that pub got overrun, what would the next pub be we'd go to when the zombies got in? And we'd do a little pub crawl as the zombie apocalypse was occurring. So, in other words, I would keep speaking. And that's one of the key lessons many can take. Anytime you freeze in a presentation, anytime you're struggling in a presentation, anytime you feel like you just don't know where to go next, just keep going. Don't give up on it. So many people just say, I've lost my place, I don't know what to say, or to go and sit down like I did after that first time. But if you stay up there, if you give yourself a chance to stay in the game, often after a few seconds, the thoughts come back, you find a path forward, and you continue on like nothing happened. But you got to stay in the game.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that experience, that particular experience. What happened there exactly? I remember you were in some sort of like act. You played an act or something, or
A little bit different. A little bit different. So basically, to give a bit of context,
Yeah.
I've always been a very shy, as a kid anyway, and as a teenager, I was always a very shy, introverted, a young man. Public speaking, presenting, I stayed well away from that. That was just not me.
Yeah.
But somehow, when I went to university, I found myself at this place where people were practicing public speaking. I think a friend brought me along. I don't really know. I was hungover most of my university. I don't know. Anyway, I found myself there at this club, and they did things like prepared speeches, where people would have a script and they stand up and deliver it. But they also did impromptu speaking, where you're literally just asked a random question, Bogdan, and you got to get up there and deliver a speech on it. And that's what that was. If a zombie apocalypse happened in Glasgow, where would you go? So I was standing up there in front of 20 strangers, heart literally screaming out of my chest.
That's the worst feeling ever, man.
Sweat dripping off my palms, and that's when I delivered the pub. So it was a very, very scary situation, a good baptism, if you like, into the world of public speaking. But when I sat back down, that's the moment I realized, okay, I need to do something about this. Because I believe no matter what path you take in life, whether you decide to be an employee, run your own business, or anything in between, at some point, public speaking is going to find you.
100%. In sales, in whatever, like anything, networking, talking with people, like just professionals and stuff.
Exactly.
That's really cool, man. So you found yourself into this business, and now you're actually teaching people. Like you came such a long way from being a shy person, right? From actually being like, I would call you an extrovert now, to be honest.
Yeah, I probably appear that way, yes.
Yeah, you definitely can talk about anything, and you have a good sense of humor, you have a good vibe, and this is really good. But let's go into the 5 pillars of effective public speaking.
Sure.
So we've got body language, voice, structure, clarity, impact, right?
Yes.
We have all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
Now let's take them one by one and try to dissect a little bit.
Sure.
So let's start with body language.
Yeah. Well, body language is very, very important. Your nonverbals really do communicate a message. They can say to the audience, oh, this speaker's really nervous, he doesn't want to be here, or this speaker's confident, he's in a flow, he's enjoying himself, and as a result, the audience begin to enjoy themselves more too. In short, there's 4 parts of your body that are going to impact the audience when you're speaking. You've got your eyes, you've got your expression, you've got these things, which I use all the time, the hands, and the feet. So we can go through each of them if you want, Bogdan, if we've got the time.
Yeah, of course.
So with eye contact, one of the key things which you need to do there is make sure that you're holding it for long enough, but not too long. Because even in this podcast, even though there's only 2 people in this room right now, if I just hold eye contact with you right now and keep it fixed for 10 seconds, for 20 seconds.
It'll look weird.
It gets a little bit uncomfortable. It's almost like I'm doing a forced choke on you or something like that. But likewise, if I'm doing this podcast with you and I'm constantly looking at my water, or I'm looking at my shoes, or I'm even just looking above you, that creates a weird feeling for you as the host as well. So there's got to be a level of maintenance with the eye contact. And usually when we're speaking to an audience, that's 2 to 3 seconds. That's enough time to show someone that you're looking at them, that you're engaging with them, before moving on to the next person and doing the same. I like the rule of 1 sentence, 1 person. I think that's a really, really nice rule for that one.
Okay.
There.
That's great.
Yeah, and then with expressions, basically the rule of thumb there is whatever your words are, you want your facial expression to show that. So if you're going into a meeting and you're saying to everyone, great news today, or bad news today, you're all fired, and you're smiling, that's giving a little bit of mixed messaging.
Mixed messaging.
Yeah. So we want to be congruent.
A little bit of a psychopath or something.
Yeah. Bad news met with, a more sympathetic face. Happy news, sure, a smile, but it's got to match up. Hands, we could talk an hour about hands, but in general, what you're looking to do is you want to use them to reinforce your words. There's been studies, where they take a speaker and they just let him or her deliver a presentation with no gestures. And they've done other presentations where they have the speaker doing lots of gestures. And then they've tested audience comprehension afterwards. And they find those who gesture more in presentations are, number 1, more engaging. But number 2, audiences are able to understand their messaging a lot more. So hands are really important for reinforcing your points to the audience. And then feet. Bogdan, I'll ask you, what do you think people do wrong with their feet when they're speaking?
So probably what I'm doing right now, I'm like, keep them crossed probably. I'm not sure. So I would say like if you have a closed position, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, you stay like that. That's to me looks open, right?
Yeah.
So you're like almost embracing somebody, right?
Yeah.
I remember like we had a few lessons about body posture, like while you're talking. And I remember my teacher told me like, if you cross your hands like this means like you're a closed person. Like you don't want to talk, right? If you're like more open, that's what I'm thinking. Also, probably most people don't move enough, especially on stage.
Yes,
right?
that can be an issue.
Yeah, so you're like just standing still like that and you're not moving, which could be a problem.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, what most people do who are nervous is they bring their feet really narrow. And then as a result, they're a little bit off balance. Their core, their base isn't as strong. And that sort of travels up through their body and then their whole body closes up. It's almost like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
All the way through the body. And yeah, sometimes you get people who just stay really still. And then sometimes you get people who are moving back and forth like a caged tiger the entire time. And that's a bit too intense as well. When it comes to feet, you want to have your feet shoulder width apart. That gives you that good solid base. And then when you get more advanced, if you want to, you can move a little bit more strategically. Say, for example, you had 3 points in your presentation, and this was your stage. Point 1 could be over this part of the stage, point 2 over this part, point 3 in the middle. Now I've created distinction between my different points, for instance. So it's just thinking about how you can use your body strategically to have an impact on the audience, to engage the audience, and to convey confidence when you're speaking.
That's cool. That's cool. Great. So let's talk about voice. So how do we use our voice?
Yeah, well, you know this is very important with podcasting. People can deal with bad video, can't they? They can deal with a little bit of glitching in video, but they can't deal with bad sound.
Yeah, that's bad.
And it's the same thing in speaking. If we have speakers who are sounding really nervous all the time like this, or they sound really flat and monotone like this, it tends to turn audiences off. And the reason it's turning people off is, number one, the first example, the really nervous one, people just don't trust what the individual's saying. They don't believe in what the individual's saying. And then for the second one, the monotone voice like this, people are able to predict how it's going to sound, therefore, going forward. And therefore, the brain switches off because the pattern is the same. We need to create that variety in our voice. And we do it through something called tonality, which is essentially the way you say something. I mean, for instance, Bogdan, I can make you feel a little bit more excited and enthusiastic about what I'm going through, or I can make you feel a little bit more serious about what I'm talking about. We can use tone, emotion in our voice strategically to affect our audience. And that's what you got to try and do. Enrich your voice with emotions and a variety of them to keep people engaged.
From a musical perspective, right? We've got pitch, right?
Yes.
Up and down. So we can like raise our voice in pitch, like we can go up or lower. Then also like the amplitude. Could be like one of the things, how loud you talk, and then also the rhythm. How fast, right? Sometimes if you're like slower, probably you may appear more mysterious or may appear a little bit more, let's say, not sure of yourself, but let's say more stable, right? If you talk too fast, right, then maybe you may appear more nervous. You know, for example, I probably did that right at the beginning of the podcast. I was like, let's go.
No,
But
I think you were good. I think you were good. But what you're describing there are almost like the keys on a piano. And if we take an emotion, like let's say we want to convey confidence, that's almost like the music that we're playing, right? And therefore, how do we do that? Well, on our piano, we've got to make sure that when it comes to that pace key, that it's steady, that it's controlled, that's not too fast like this. And we've also got to think about the strength key on our piano. We want our voice to sound firm, not really soft like this. And then we've also got to think about the volume key. We need our voice to be loud if we're conveying confidence, not quiet. So you can begin to create that music, that confidence through playing those keys.
Got it.
And that's what using your voice effectively is all about. Figuring out the emotion you want the audience to feel and then allowing your voice to play that song.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Allowing your voice to play that song. I like that, how that sounds. So cool. So let's go to structure. How do we structure our speech?
This is something most people get wrong, and it's critical. When it comes to planning a presentation, you actually want to start with the end in mind. And the reason for that is if you can figure out your end destination, you can then create the opening and the middle with that ending in mind. It creates congruency, synergy, a flow through the presentation. So that is absolutely critical. Get clear on what you're trying to say to the audience. Write it down in 10 words or less, because that almost becomes like your North Star, Bogdan, that you follow all the way through when creating the presentation. From there, you can hop to the start, and you got to figure out a good hook. Did I tell you last time about my WWF story when it comes to hooks?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't remember. Let's go.
I can tell you quickly. Basically, I had this job in Glasgow where I worked for WWF.
Yeah.
Not the wrestling, the wildlife charity, to be clear for everyone.
No wrestling.
I would have loved to work with The Rock and Stone Cold, but Anyway, I was on the street, and basically I was one of those annoying people trying to sign others up for a charity.
Yeah.
I'd stop them and try and sell them like a cuddly toy panda, get them to adopt a giraffe, something like this. And my approach, Bogdan, at first was this. I'd go up to people and I'd say, "Sir, can I talk to you about the animals?" Or "Sir, have you got a minute to talk?" And people would just go right by me. Like they wouldn't want to talk to me, engage with me, nothing. It was like I had the plague. And I had a colleague, and he did something a little bit differently. He would go up to people and he'd say, "What do you think elephants are most afraid of?"
No, started with a question first. Yeah.
Yeah. When he engaged them like that, they were far more likely to stop. Why do you think that was, Bogdan?
Probably it's because of the question, and it was intriguing, and people wanted to respond to the question first. Yeah.
That's the key word, intriguing, or if you want, curiosity was created. And that's what you've got to strive to do in the opening 10 seconds of a presentation. Create some form of curiosity to make the audience want to hear more. A question's a great way to do it. You can also tell a story. You can start with interaction. You can start with a fact. Something other than, "Hi, my name is Kyle. I'm here today to talk to you about public speaking."
I like that a lot. And that actually probably would work very well in sales as well. Because a lot of people start the same emails or the same pitches, kind of like the same way. Like, I am Bogdan Bratis from SaaSpod, whatever. Like, I produce podcasts. That's what I do. When you can start with what's your biggest problem with your podcast? Maybe you can describe that. Or did you know that podcasting is one of the most effective way to market your business or whatever? Stuff like that. Like, just open a discussion and make it more soft. That's kind of like the thing. You don't want to go straight to them with your intention. It's mostly about building it up.
It is kind of drawing them to you rather than pushing upon them, if you like. And it does work in sales. This guy was the top sales guy in WWF for Glasgow. So, he knew his stuff. And a hook is important in anything you do, whether it be presentation, podcast, email even. If you think about it, every form of communication, if you start with a hook, you're going to get people more engaged and it's going to be a better conversation. So it really is an important principle overall.
Have you watched the series, Big Bang Theory, right?
Yeah, I like that show.
Young Sheldon?
I haven't seen Young Sheldon.
Yeah, so Young Sheldon, so his brother, I forgot what his name was.
Yeah.
But he, at some point, wanted to prove that he can sell snow globes. It was so funny because he found like a store that was running a discount because they were closing down, and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna buy these for like £2, like $2 each, and then I'm gonna sell them for $10 or something each." And then his father was like, his father George, he said, "Nah, you won't make anything. Like you won't be able to sell this crap. Nobody will buy this crap. And we are in Texas, for God's sake. Who buys snow globes in Texas, right? It's like sunny outside all the time." And then he tried to sell the snow globes like any salesman would do, like trying to knock at the door and then "Oh, do you want to buy some snow globes?" and blah blah blah. And then now everybody was shutting their doors. And then at some point, he just realized, "Oh, actually, I should start my speech in a different way." And he said something like, "When was the last time you've seen snow in Texas?" Something like that. "Do you remember that time when that happened?" He said, "You can bring your memories back."
Yeah, nostalgia.
With this snow globe. And every time you see the snow globe, you'll be able to think about that. So he just shifted the story a little bit, and he started like, oh, I actually get it right now. So that
I
was
love
cool.
Love that because that's a very powerful emotion. Was it young Sheldon or his friend?
It was his brother.
His brother was using a very powerful emotion, potent emotion there, nostalgia, to begin that. There's another really good example of that in the show Mad Men. Have you ever watched that before?
Mad Men, no.
Oh, it's basically about advertisers in New York, and they would take clients would come to them with this glass of water, and then they've got to figure out how to market this glass of water to the masses. And Kodak came to them at one point, and they wanted to figure out how they could sell this idea of a rotating camera, as in you turn it and then you get the next photo. You turn it, you get the next photo. And the way that this Don Draper was the guy's name, the way that he pitches it in the show was that it's more than just a turning camera piece of kit. What this is a time machine. It's a time machine going back in time. This is almost like a childhood carousel going round and round, showing you the different aspects of life. Right. And it's like a dose of nostalgia in each time you turn it. And just selling it like that imagery makes it so much more appealing than, you know what, this is a camera and you turn it, you get the next photo. Yeah. So it just builds something so much different, and it's a pattern disruptor.
So you create a structure, a story around it, and it definitely becomes more attractive this way.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go. Next, clarity. So what is that?
Yeah, well, a bit of that is getting clear on what you're trying to say, of course, to the audience. But then as you're going through the presentation, it's asking yourself, how can I make this complex information easy to understand? And that can be as simply as just checking in with the audience. Ask them a question. Did that make sense to you? Was that clear? Any questions on this? Having those moments for them to get involved, for them to tell you where they're at are really good too. But then also using things like stories to explain more complex things.
Maybe an analogy. That could be good.
An analogy. Yeah, exactly. It's like this. And that's a really good... Because what you want to do is you want to bridge the audience from the known to the unknown. You know, if I just present the unknown to you, that's a little bit more challenging for me to take in. But if you take me from, okay, there's this thing here that you already know. Yeah. And here's this other thing, which is just a little bit different. Now I've almost got a bridge to getting to that new information, if that makes sense.
It's easier to connect the dots this way.
Exactly. So that's what it's all about there. Just making sure you're getting your messaging across clear.
Impact. What is that?
Well, I mean, I define impact in the book as making a lasting impression, which causes people to take action. And that's what I think we can truly judge a presentation by. You can always get people coming up to you saying, oh, that was amazing, that was brilliant, that changed my life. But did it? You know, I think you only know that if you see people doing something differently afterwards. And it's just about figuring out how you can construct your presentation in such a way that it does inspire that big step, which is action at the end of the day. So how do you do it? Well, it's a mixture of everything we've spoken about. It's a mixture of telling great stories, which inspire people, but also telling stories which show the consequences if you do something wrong, for instance, or if you stay where you are, you know?
Okay, that's cool. Actually, you reminded me of Stephen Bartlett's speech. He was here in Glasgow last year, and I think it was in February, and I attended his event, and I stayed in there, and he was brilliant, man. He was great. He knows how to talk on stage. He knows how to tell a story, obviously, with the Diary of a CEO podcast and all that. Yeah. He spoke with a lot of influential people and people that know stuff. And what I remember, there was a moment in that 2-hour event where he described the idea that we have this amount of time, right, to live our life. And he did that through a nice analogy with, I don't remember exactly, but there was like a few maybe pieces of like Lego cubes or something like that. And instead, like each Lego cube is 1 year and something like that. And he started like taking away some of the parts, saying like, this is like your childhood, this is your retirement, the amount of hours you spend going to work, this is the amount of time you spend like doing something like watching TV. And then at some point there was like just a little bit of like just a few Legos left, like probably 3-4 pieces, and say like, this is the amount of time you actually have to spend your life to properly enjoy it. And that kind of like started to sink in.
Yes.
Right. And it started to be like, oh man, I have to do something about it. Right.
Yeah.
Because the entire speech was about how to start your business, how to do things, how to be lean in or lean out. It's one of those like ideas that you may be a little bit, you may not, for example, with the AI revolution or whatever, you may be a little bit, you may not like the idea and you might not want to embrace it as much just because it's like scary and stuff. So what about like going in? So it's all that stuff he talked about. And then at the end, he gave us this like visual representation of our life. And then you realize, oh, I need to do something. So I think that was the impact in that speech. That's what I felt.
So you use a visual aid, you use a prop to really show you just how little time you've got on this planet. In general, people are motivated by either gain, i.e., if I do this thing, I will achieve X, Y, Z, or pain. If I don't do this, I'm going to have a life I regret. I'm not going to be able to get where I want to go, or this bad thing is going to happen to me. And it's those two motivations, those two driving forces, gain or pain, which you can tell stories around to really push the audience in the direction you want them to go.
So going through these 5 pillars, like what's kind of like the biggest mistake people make when public speaking?
Well, there's so many.
There's so many.
Because people...
What is one of the most common ones, let's say? And if they correct it now, they will immediately become better, much better.
Instantly better.
Yeah, because it's like, obviously you need to train yourself. You need to work on this skill, right? It's not something that comes overnight. Obviously, some people have it, naturally. They are nice, great speakers. But some people need to learn it. Before we dive back into the episode, I want to give a quick shout out to SaaSpot. Not only are they the masterminds behind this podcast, but they also power dozens of other shows you know and love. SaaSpot offers a flexible pay-as-you-go podcast production service that grows with you. Whether you need help choosing the right equipment, booking guests, editing, or setting up your podcast, they've got you covered. The best part? The team at SaaSpot isn't just professional, they make the entire process fun and stress-free. If you've been sitting on a great podcast idea, now it's the time to bring it to life. Visit SaaSpot.com and use the code TPF2025 to get 20% off your first production package. That's TPF 2025 for 20% off. All right, let's get back into the episode. This is one of the questions I want to ask as well. It's like, probably, is this skill something that you can learn, right?
Well, I was actually going to, it's good, nice we came to that point, because I was going to say that's probably the biggest mistake people make. They think it can't be learned. They think it's too much. They think it's something that you have to take years to do. It's really not. You can implement a lot of these things very fast. Now, for instance, if you take a body language thing, let's say you start looking at the audience for as long as I suggested, 2 or 3 seconds. That might feel weird at first. You might even do it in a weird way at first. But as you do it again and again and again, slowly that's going to become a habit and it's going to become more natural. At first, it might be weird starting with the end when it comes to your presentation. But as you do it more, it's going to slowly become a habit. And this is just skills. It's just skills that are learned through repetition and through feedback. And that is it. If you can get your head around that concept that you can be a great public speaker if you're willing to put in the hours, then the world's your oyster. You can do anything with this.
Yeah, I found myself when I would need to give a speech or I will need to have a presentation somewhere, even like at university. I used to do these presentations by myself, just while cleaning. Started talking by myself while cleaning and while trying to get my point across, just to kind of like practice this. And I think this is also like something that maybe you could do as well. Obviously, putting all these ideas into practice. And you definitely become much better. Because one of the challenges is you don't know how it's gonna feel until you get on stage, because each room has a different vibe.
It does.
It does. Different vibe. It depends who is in that room. The lighting can have an effect on that. If you see the people, right? If the lighting is right, flashing in your eyes, then you probably may not see a lot of people. For me, actually, I don't like that. I feel like my nerves start to like go up, and maybe it's just the temperature, anything like that. It's gonna create a different experience for you. So each and every speech, each and every event may be different.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend going to the venue before your presentation if you can.
Just to feel it, yeah.
Just to feel it, even just get eyes on it. If you can't get to the venue, at least look it up online.
Because otherwise it's gonna be like loads of information.
Yeah.
Like and that's gonna blast you right on stage there, and you're gonna need to process all that while you're delivering the speech.
Exactly,
which is like not good.
And then the other part I would say is get to the venue 45 minutes beforehand. So you can do 4 things precisely. Number 1, check your tech. Make sure everything's working, the PowerPoint works. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to go to your plan B, but at least now you've got time to do that. Second thing would be to actually run through your opening. Physically say aloud before anyone arrives on that stage what you plan to say, because the start is always the hardest bit. If you can start well, you'll continue well. Third, talk to the audience as they arrive. So many people make the mistake of just hiding in the corner as a speaker while the audience are sitting down or having pastries or mingling around. Get in there with them, talk to them, get to know them.
That's really good, because once you start talking with a few people in the audience, then you start feeling like, I know these people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easier for me to do it. Actually, as a musician, because I used to play, I'm still playing, I play keys now, which is not as hard as playing as a frontman, where you need to interact with the audience a lot.
Okay, yeah.
But I used to play as a frontman as well as lead vocalist in a few bands in Romania. And one of the things that makes everything like work better is you could talk to the people in the audience, a few of them, and these people actually will be enthusiastic once you get on stage, because they know you already. That's going to give you confidence, and that makes you a better singer or a better speaker. So that's kind of like, I remember there were a few instances when that happened to me, and it was like, oh man, I should do this all the time. Yeah, it's pretty good. So don't be shy to talk to people.
Precisely. You can win fans before you even speak.
Yep.
That's the great thing about that. And then last thing I would suggest.
Honestly, but I'll tell you something. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
But if my mom would be in the audience, I'll be the most nervous person ever.
Because if someone you know?
I know, and she knows me, and probably she's analyzing me or something like that. Anything like that. Anybody that is really close to me, if it's in the audience, it makes it worse. Yeah. That's for me. I'm not sure. Personally, that's what happens to me.
Yeah. I think I've got away from that feeling because I ask family members to watch presentations before I do them. So for instance, my fiance, she watches most of the big presentations that I have and gives me critical feedback. And I've done that, I think, for so many years. It's not that big a deal.
Got it.
Speaking in front of her now. Maybe you should get your mum to give you some feedback before.
Yeah.
That might solve that problem.
Yeah, she doesn't want to upset me, or she may not be as honest as I would like her to be, for example. So it's stuff like that. It's quite an interesting situation there. So I'm actually more comfortable in front of strangers. Yeah, most of the time.
A lot of people are.
But because I know that they're not gonna judge in any way. I'm not that my mom would judge me, but I'm just saying, like, if I did something wrong, then she will tell me later on.
Yeah, you have to see her later.
But my like strangers, I may never meet them.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a problem.
The goal is to try to get to a place where you're not even thinking about the after. You're not thinking about the before or the after. It's just this one moment in time. That's all there is. The presentation itself, when you're with the audience. And I think you get there through practice, through repetition, through getting feedback from family and lots of other people and them saying, yeah, this is working well. It gives you that confidence going into it, that this is something of value, and then you can be fully present in the moment with your audience for that.
Do you remember a time when you had a really, really difficult event or a speech or a presentation or anything like that you've been part of, and how you overcome that event?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I overcame it in the moment, but I can certainly tell you what I learned from it. When I first started my business, Confidence by Design, 6 years ago, I wanted to actually work with schools.
Okay.
Because I was 22, I didn't think anyone in business would really take me seriously at that age. So I thought, you know what, I'll go and talk to younger people. They'll have to listen to me.
No.
So I like emailed a bunch of different schools and finally got into one of them. And at the time, I wasn't doing public speaking. I was actually just doing general confidence, like talking about confidence, how to be confident in your life in general.
Nice.
And I set myself up, and then all of these at the front of the stage, I'd been practicing this for like a month, because I really wanted it to go well. It was my first professional, well, not my first professional, but one of my first professional speaking gigs. So I was quite nervous about it myself. And then all the little kids start coming in, well, teenagers, they weren't little. And I begin my talk. After about 5 minutes, Bogdan, I'm already seeing they're on their phones.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've already lost them after 5 minutes, and this is a 3-hour session.
To be honest, this is a generation problem, man.
Yeah. But I could feel their skepticism. I could feel they were disinterested. I'm looking at the head teacher at the back of the room, and he is looking like he wants to throttle me. It's just a terrible, terrible experience all around. And I think there was 2 reasons for that. Number one, I was talking about a subject I wasn't ready to teach. So I was talking about confidence. And yeah, I was a confident 22-year-old, but I didn't know at that time how to deconstruct confidence and how to teach it to other people so that they could get it, if that makes sense.
Got it, yeah.
So I was just saying them to do things like meditation, do this cold plunge. I was just sort of picking up other ideas from other people instead of my own.
Yeah.
And therefore, it wasn't probably the most authentic, and it probably wasn't the most effective all around because it didn't come from my own personal experience. I wasn't able to articulate that at that time. Second thing is I just talked at them the whole time.
Yeah.
I just talked.
I think with kids, you have to interact a little bit more.
You have to interact with everyone, never mind kids. I've learned this over time, whether it be on Zoom, whether it be in person, you have to give the audience a voice. You have, because they've got tremendous value they can add to your presentation. And I've actually learned in my speaking journey that the best moments in presentations are when the audience are speaking, not you. And therefore, those are the 2 big things I learned from that awful experience. And the school never invited me back, but maybe they will now. And now that I've learned one or 2 things.
a similar experience, maybe to a lower scale. A year ago, last year in winter, I went back home to kind of like visit my parents for Christmas and stuff.
Yeah.
And then my old teacher, she invited me to the high school where I used to attend, and she wanted me to kind of like provide a speech on like how to do something with your life at the end of the day, because I was a good example that I actually did something with my life. I managed to build a business. I managed to travel in another country to do things and stuff, and they wanted me to like provide a speech on that subject. However, it was like a very improvised one because I didn't have time to do any of that. It was Christmas.
Yes.
And I said, okay, I'm just going to go and chat with the kids. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just going to go there, chat with them.
Chat with Bogdan.
And see how that feels. It was good. It wasn't bad, but it just felt like my message didn't get across very well just because there was no structure.
Yeah.
So probably my speech, like the way I talked, was good, but the structure was missing. So because of that, obviously some people that weren't really interested, they were like just sitting behind and like just not paying too much attention. And some people that would be like, oh, actually I get this guy actually did something great, like, let me listen to him. It was just because of what I've done. That's why they actually started listening to me, and they kept listening to me. But yeah, I do get it. Like the young generation, they are a much difficult audience to have than anybody else. I'm sure, especially how old were these kids? Yeah.
Oh, they must have been 16, 17,
16,
18,
17 is
maybe
the
18.
worst.
Yeah.
Because these guys are like, they make the difference already from anything. They kind of like spot things, and they can say, I actually can just like sit on my phone and just like
Yeah, they can detect
TikTok.
when you're nervous as well, and
Yeah.
they'll feed into that. So yeah, it was a rough experience, but one I learned a tremendous amount from. And I think that's the key whenever you have a bad experience in speaking. Learn from it
Mm-hmm.
and then move forward and bring those lessons into your next presentation.
So you remember from last time what we've done?
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
picking out the box.
Yeah, so I'm
The mystery box.
I'm the mystery box. Yeah, so I would try not to actually have you pick the same questions. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you remember what the question were, but it doesn't matter if it seems known to you. Like if you know it,
Yeah.
just like chuck it and then take another one. So let's try 2 or 3 questions. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's the most embarrassing thing you've accidentally said or done in public?
Oh, this is a tough one, man.
Embarrassing thing I've said or done. Well, look, there's definitely a lot in school which I have suppressed.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a recent thing that's coming to mind.
I'll tell you if it makes you comfortable. I'll tell you one recent one that I've just done a few weeks ago. I went to Aberdeen to play with a band,
yeah.
and I took a cab from the train station. So I went with the train, and then I got a cab to go to the venue where I had to play. And then I got in the taxi, and I had the small espresso from Costa with me, and then the guy said, you've got the coffee. He felt a little bit uncomfortable that I have the coffee in his car, that I may spill it over or something. And he didn't have the cap on it, because on the espressos, they don't give you the cap. Or if they give you the cap, you'll need to take it off because you can't sip it from it. It's not like a to-go thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really funny. I stayed in the taxi and I told him like, no, man, I'm not gonna spill it. It's fine. No problem. Don't worry about it. I'm good.
Yeah,
and
I'm a pro.
I even said something like, if I'm gonna spill it, I'm gonna pay for your seat or something. I don't remember what I said. Something like a bit arrogant.
This is only going one way.
Yeah, and literally at the end, when I decided to pay, I was taking my wallet from my pockets and stuff like that, and somehow I spilled coffee on his chair, and he was like, he looked at me like, "You're gonna pay for that, right?" Jesus, I didn't even know what to say, and it was so awkward, man. I just felt like that thing haunted me for the rest of the day. So, man, poor man. I told him like, I'm not gonna spill any coffee on his in his car, and I actually did
exactly
it.
what you
Yeah,
did.
and the guy just like let it go, so it was okay.
Wow.
But yeah,
Good Glaswegian. You manifested that.
Yeah.
You manifested that. So there's an old couple where I live in our same building, neighbors.
okay, that sounds funny already.
And there's actually, in fairness, they're not an old couple. There's an older man and there is a younger woman. And when I say younger woman, maybe he's like 80, she's 60 or 50 or something like that. And one day I saw this woman. I've always assumed it's his daughter. And I went up to the daughter and I said, how are you doing? How's things going? And she said, yeah, I'm great. How are you? And I said, yeah, I'm fantastic. How's your dad doing?
Oops.
And there was this long pause. And then she looked deep into my eyes and said, he's not my dad. He's my husband.
Oh man.
And of course, I have to see them every couple of days because we live in the same building. And I can't look them in the eye anytime we see each other in the corridors.
Well, it happens, man. It's like so again, what was the age gap between them?
I mean, I don't know their actual ages, but it looked to me like 80 for the man and 50, 60 for the woman. But I could be wrong.
Fair enough. I mean, that's fine. It's not too bad. It's okay. But the only problem is that you need to look in the eyes every single time you go home, which is funny. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go with one more.
Another one?
Yeah.
Do you want to pick from the box?
I'll pick one. I'll pick one for you. But do you want me to pick one?
Either way, yeah. Whatever you want to do.
This is
Turn
supposed
about.
this is supposed to be fun. That's like the whole point of it. What's the strangest thing you've ever bought or considered buying online?
Strangest thing I've ever bought or considered buying online. I once bought a big water gun
A
for
water
a
gun.
speech.
Okay.
for a speech.
That's-
a big water gun.
Business expense there.
That, it was, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, imagine-
Jeff Bezos, you got that noted down.
Imagine, explain that to the accountant. What did he use that water gun for? It's business stuff.
Yeah, I was part of this humor speech contest, and my speech was about how seagulls were causing me misery. I don't know if you find seagulls annoying here in Scotland, but they swoop down, they steal your food.
Well,
they
here in Glasgow, I
taunt
don't
you.
find many seagulls, but in Southampton, they were fighting on the street all the
Yeah.
time, like crazy over food and
Yeah.
making loads of noise. Yeah.
Well, where we live, there's like seagull nests on the cinema. On the roof of the cinema nearby, so they're everywhere. And when they've got babies, they're like really aggressive. And my partner is terrified of them.
All right.
So I did this whole sort of fun, a little bit of a tall tale, not real speech about how she got taken by seagulls, and I was going to be the savior with the water gun.
All right,
coming in
that's fine.
and saving her. So that was one of the weird things I bought for a speech
Yeah.
specifically. The speech didn't do very well, but nonetheless, it was fun. It
That's
was
cool.
fun.
That's cool. It's a quite tough subject, to be honest, to talk about, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's like it's almost the same as the apocalypse thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do one more.
Okay.
You can pick up. Yeah.
All right. I'll go for the one at the very bottom, the one just lurking down there that no one will get to. If you had a time machine but could only use it once, would you go to the past or the future? Why? I'd go to the past.
Oh,
And there's
nice.
one specific moment in history which I would like to see.
Oh, okay.
And that is when the pyramids were getting built.
Oh man, because you just visited Egypt.
I recently visited Egypt.
Yeah.
I recently saw the pyramids, and you only truly fully appreciate the impressiveness, the enormity, the
Only if you go there.
awe of the pyramids when you are this close to them. Because when you're at the very base, you see that one of the blocks is the size of this room.
Yeah.
And it's like weighs the same as 15 elephants,
Yep.
and it was taken from 1,000 kilometers away, and you're like, how did they do that without wheels?
Do you really believe we built them? What do you think?
Well, you want my opinion?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a hot take for you. All right, I think that we were instructed to build them by another entity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that entity, did it come from space or did it come from Earth? I'm not sure, but I think there was some form of being that is no longer here. If you look at it, I mean, things like giants
Yeah.
actually did exist.
Yeah.
That is a real thing, and it is possible that there were giants or some form of other intellectual race more advanced than us at the time who instructed us, because it's even other things like how the pyramid lines up with the sun, how each side is like 1 centimeter
Yeah.
off being perfect. These things are just
the way they were
It's hard
cut,
to do it
the
today.
stones and all that, it feels like they were
Yeah.
cut with laser beams.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
anyone
it's
who,
crazy.
who tells you they know how they built the pyramids is lying. They have
course.
to be. And therefore, I want to go back and I want to get to the
See.
root of what the heck is going on here.
Yeah.
So, of course, I have to stay there, don't I? Because I can't come back in my time
Well,
machine.
I truly believe.
But hey,
It's
worth it.
I believe that's what I believe is that they weren't. They maybe were one of the thoughts I had a few days ago was that we probably built them with alien technology somehow, or with the techniques we learned from the aliens.
exactly, yes.
And then we build them to impress the aliens, maybe to make them come back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously people, they weren't like, they didn't know that these are actually aliens. They just knew that these are like some sort of like beings that
Yeah.
came from out of space or whatever. They didn't even know that maybe the
They probably called
Earth
them
is round.
gods.
However, even, you know, the pyramids are aligned perfectly with certain stars, and you can see like certain stars from the pyramids, and maybe that is what they are supposed to do, is like just to kind of like call these beings back to Earth, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they brought some sort of like technology, they brought some knowledge and stuff like that.
Yes.
You never know. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And it's interesting. There are similar designs to the pyramids.
Everywhere. everywhere.
Mexico, Indonesia, they look a little bit different on the outside, but some of the foundational ways they went about it are the same. And these civilizations apparently had no contact with each other in any way. It's incredible.
It's possible that humans build them if they really, really wanted to build them. Like, imagine like having thousands and thousands of people sacrificing to build these things. Maybe it would be possible. Now you won't even conceive doing that. We will use some machinery and stuff like that. And even with the machines, we won't be able to do it properly. Yeah. But if you've got like loads of people somehow doing this, maybe they will be able to build them. But for what purpose? I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of that, right?
Yeah. Well, when we were there, they took us to where the workers stayed. And these weren't slaves. Each worker, each engineer on the pyramids had their own house with their own family.
Yeah.
They had their own compound. They were looked after.
Yeah.
These were like professional builders. So it creates even more mystery. And there was about 20,000 of them. It took them 21 years, they think, to create them. But it's a fascinating thing. If you've not been, you must go. There'll be a million men trying to sell you camel rides, but still, it's worth it.
I'll definitely visit one day. Cool. So let's get back into today's topic. So, there is that time when you get on stage, you feel like you're losing your audience, right? You feel like the audience is kind of like drifting apart. Like, for example, the young people you talked about at school. How can you win them back? How can you make a shift in your speech to make sure that you win them back, or like win them for the entirety of the speech?
Yeah. Well, I think there's several different ways you can go about that. One thing is to actually get them involved, right? Let's see what they're actually thinking and feeling. Is it just an assumption we're making that they're switched off, or are they actually? Let's engage with them, find that out. And then what you can look to do is, based on what they're saying to you, based on their answers, you can then look to share some form of personal story that will get them on side. If you can tell a story of some kind which shows the audience that you are like them, that you get them, that you've experienced what they've experienced, they're going to buy more into you. That's why at the start of my presentations, often I will share a story about how I used to have a fear of public speaking, whether it be a story I share about school or a story like the one with
they relate to you.
So they can connect with me more. Yeah, and that's a great way to sort of win the audience over from the very beginning. And then, of course, you can use humor and other tools like that to really bring down the barriers. And of course, from an engagement standpoint, if you're looking out and you think people are really switched off, think about varying things like voice. Think about changing the song you're playing with your voice. We spoke about that before. Maybe you need to move at a different tempo to re-engage the people. The answer is there's a variety of reasons, and you've got to have the skill in the moment to figure out what the problem is. Is it the problem they don't know you, and therefore you need to tell a story? Is the problem you've been talking at them all the time and you need to interact? Or is the problem that you need to actually change your delivery to create more variety? If you can solve that problem in the moment, you'll get them back.
Good. Awesome. Great. So, we live in this world now where literally most of the work is done remotely. People talk over Zoom, Skype, whatever. And there is this issue that disconnects us, right? Because when you're in a room, you feel the temperature of the room. You even may feel like you may smell the room. You feel it.
Smells everything. Nice in here.
Yeah, it's good. So you may actually get the vibe of the entire room, right?
Yeah.
However, remotely, everything is digital. You actually see a flat screen, right? And you're looking at somebody through that screen. And I find that challenging sometimes to kind of like propagate your message over that distance, right? So let's say somebody is in Australia, I'm here in the UK, and I talk with that person. First thing first, that person is on a different time zone. Maybe they're like going to sleep in a few minutes, and then I'm here in the morning already hyped up, right? Hype, right? And also there is the delay. Also, one of the challenges I find is talking into the you said that you might want to look into their eyes for a little bit, right? One of the challenges I find is that in order for you to look in their eyes, you need to look into the camera. You can't look into their eyes because if you do, you look into the screen, right? And then your eyes are like downwards.
Yes.
So do you find that challenging? Like, how would you like overcome these challenges when like speaking with people remotely, you know?
Yeah. I don't find the eye contact challenging because every day I am looking at the camera and you just get used to it. What I've probably learned to do is use my peripheral vision quite a bit. So I'm looking at the camera, but I'm still roughly seeing underneath how they're reacting to things. And then of course you look down now and again to see how they're getting on. Some people like to put a picture of someone, of like a person behind their camera, Bogdan, to sort of humanize the camera a little bit more. Could be like a family member, a friend, crush celebrity. Had one lady, she put a picture of Gerard Butler behind her camera, 300 outfit and all, so whatever it takes. And then on the other side, I guess, when you're talking to someone in Australia and you're in the morning, it's sort of a mix of matching and leading, isn't it? So for instance, if we hop onto a call and I'm like, hey Bogdan, great to see you. How's things going today? And you're like, I'm fine, Kyle. You know, there's a difference in energy there. And what I've got to do is probably lower mine a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So I'm matching you. And then I've got to slowly, incrementally build you up until at the end of the call, you're like, this was a great call, Kyle. Let's do it again, you know?
Yeah.
So it's matching and then leading. And that's something you might have to do in speaking as well. If you've got an audience and they're quite flat, if you come on and you're like, this is going to be the best presentation ever, it actually creates a wee bit of a disconnect because they are so far away from your energy level.
Yeah.
You've got to lower it and then strategically build it up, like momentum, and until you get them to where you want to go. So I think those couple of things help a lot with the online world. Or do you do most of your calls online now?
Yeah, most of the calls are online on Zoom. And one thing that I see very often is like people record podcasts remotely.
They do,
yeah.
don't they?
So so we reverse like the reason why I don't make like I do have actually a few guests scheduled remotely.
Yeah.
And I try to make it as natural as possible.
Yeah.
But the reason why I want to record in the studio is because we can actually talk to each other person to person.
Different feeling.
And it's such a like it's almost like there's an energy building up in the room when that doesn't happen online, right? So and I find that challenging.
Pyramids online, that's for sure.
Probably not. Even this game I've done with you, right?
Yeah.
How can I actually make you choose these questions yourself? Maybe I could have like some digital spinning wheel. Or actually, I was thinking about that. Like, how can I do this remotely?
That's an
And
option.
it's a bit challenging. You know, every simple thing that you take for granted when talking to people face to face becomes a little bit of a challenge when you do it online, right?
Yeah.
Delays, interruptions, something doesn't work, whatever. Like all that stuff is kind of like one of the things that I find challenging. And I think it will become kind of like one of those things where people get used to it it's already like that. People, like, for example, I know a few people in Glasgow that I actually had to get on a Zoom call with them, right? Even though we are very local.
Yes.
We are like not more than a few miles away from each other.
Yes.
I prefer actually going for a coffee, right? And talk face to face.
Yeah.
But some people are so in their ways or like so comfortable with whatever they're doing, they just don't want to move. They don't want to do anything. Maybe they're too busy and they just like.
Well, it's a time thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a time thing. If it takes so much time to go to the coffee shop and then do the meeting and then go back, whereas you could have had 2 calls, I guess that's how people look on it, isn't it? But you do miss something. There's no doubt about that. But it's here to stay. It's like AI, what you're saying before. If you don't embrace it, then you're going to struggle with it. So you've got to just sort of open your arms up to it and say, come on in. It's here to stay.
Good. One more question for you. So your biggest win as a public speaker coach, or let's say maybe one event that you had was very successful for you, like maybe you can describe this.
Yeah, there's lots of different directions I could go with that. I mean, I've had clients, for instance, go on TV from the training that we've done before. I've had clients end up doing their own workshop, creating their own videos, all this kind of stuff. One thing which stood out to me recently was a client who, she was one of these ladies who just couldn't get out of her own way. You know, she just constantly, she had the skill, like she could talk. When she talked, you really listened. She was gesturing, she was doing all this quite naturally, but she just couldn't bring herself to make a video. she just found every single excuse in the book. Oh, I don't feel good today. Oh, the stars haven't aligned.
Procrastinating.
Oh, I haven't drank 3 teas. Like, there was just always something.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it was easy. I had to really, really push her and wrestle her. But to date, this very day, she sent me 2 videos.
All right.
We finally made that breakthrough. And
So what are the videos about?
well, her whole thing is about star signs, actually.
I love that. What sign star are you?
I'm Aries, I believe.
Aries.
Which I think is quite a pushy forward. I think it's the god of war, Aries, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. But anyway, going back to her, there's something coming up called the Venus retrograde, which can put a lot of relationships into flux, apparently. And we've been trying to get her to make videos about this for so long, but I think finally she's taken that first big step, which is make the video. And now she's going to take more steps. And I see so many people get caught in this thing. They're afraid to do that first presentation. They're afraid to do that first video. They're afraid to do that first podcast because they're so worried about what others will think or getting things wrong. But the reality is this. Your first is going to be crap.
Yeah.
I bet your first podcast was terrible.
No, I didn't even publish it, but I actually recorded it, right? So not my first podcast with a guest, but I attempted to record a few podcasts myself, like solo podcasts.
Yeah.
And I found them challenging to record. I did them anyway, right? I didn't publish them, but I learned a ton while doing that. So now I have no problem, right?
Yeah.
It's just about like trying and trying and trying. And at some point, you're just gonna start mastering the skill. Even though it may seem impossible or it may seem like it's not just thing, right? It's not like something that you were born with. Yeah. Even for me, for example, I'm not an English native speaker. I speak English as a second language, and I still like, you know what I mean? I'm hosting this podcast. I don't really care.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
It's all about like just trying to be the best at anything. And if you do that, and if you do that consistently, you'll succeed. There are maybe a few things in life maybe you may not be able to master because you have some sort of like problem or whatever, but maybe you're dyslexic, for example, right? And you will be dyslexic for maybe all the interviews, but if you're comfortable with that, that doesn't matter, right? So for example, I've got a client that she's dyslexic and she's hosting a podcast and she's great. And she's a really good host, right? So
I mean, I am a dyslexic. It doesn't. I mean, that's if anything, it helps you in many ways with speaking. But the point is, just be aware when you're trying to do something for the first time, it's going to be bad. It's not going to be great.
Yeah.
But that is the starting point where you can then begin to build. Her second video will be even better than her first. Her third video will be even better than her second, and that's what's going to incrementally build her confidence. So I love moments like that, Bogdan. To answer your question, when clients make a breakthrough. When they do the thing they've been putting off or they've been afraid to do, because that is when the world begins to open up for them. Yeah,
it's the same with podcasting. With my clients, for example, and I just had a client recently. He signed up with SaaSpod, and he wanted to start his podcast, and then he sent us the audio files for that podcast, and I listened to them, and they didn't sound good. They were like all over the place in terms of audio quality. The actual message and everything, the story was great, but the audio quality was not there. And he actually came from another podcasting agency. They didn't coach him on what to do. They just like said, just send us the files and that's it. That's something that I don't do, right? I want to make sure that whatever the client is sending to us is 100% ready to be produced, because I don't want to like give my clients false promises, right?
Yes.
So they need to deliver a good quality audio in order for us to deliver a good quality service. There's no other way. So basically, I told him like, man, I know you recorded 4 podcast episodes. It took you maybe some time to do it, especially because they are the first episodes. But you know what? You need to do it again, right? So don't be disappointed about it, but just do it again. I'm sure you're gonna do it better next time.
Yeah.
It was much better.
Yeah.
Obviously,
exactly.
Coached him a little bit, showed him a few other things.
Yeah.
And then he knew exactly what he had to do. And then there you go. Much better. So mistakes make you better every time. And you need to learn from them.
For sure. It's all part of the journey.
And you can't mistakes if you don't make mistakes.
Yeah,
Right?
for
So
sure.
you have to make mistakes.
For sure.
Good.
For sure.
By the way, like talking about Stephen Bartlett, he said something like he had a department or a vice president for failure in his business. So he would just analyze failures in the business. Only that was his job, just to look at what fails,
Why it happened.
why it
what we
happened,
can learn
and just
from it.
make it better right next time, and just try to put that into metrics. I found that quite interesting.
That, yeah. I
But
like
it's
that.
quite cool to be paid for like just criticizing stuff, and just, so cool.
I know. I think we all have someone in our family who would be good at that job, right?
Yeah. Well, Kyle, it was such a great having you back on the podcast.
Yes.
Right. Actually, probably we could get that podcast episode released in audio form, because the audio is fine. It's just the video that was messed up. But yeah, really appreciate that you decided to come back on the podcast. We'll definitely go and have a lunch at some point, because we were supposed to go and have a lunch today somewhere at a restaurant nearby, but we'll definitely meet again.
Yeah.
And we'll do it. And thank you so much for coming. Do you have any piece of advice for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, my advice would be what we just reiterated there in our last section. Start. Do that first podcast, do that first presentation, do that first video. It's not going to be the best, but it's going to be your starting place to progress.
And one more thing, Kyle, where can people find you?
Yeah,
do
they
wanna
can
find
find me in 3 places. My website, confidencebydesign.co.uk. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you type in Kyle Murtagh, Murtagh for the second name spelling. And I'm also on YouTube as well. Same name, Kyle Murtagh. I post lots of video tips on public speaking on YouTube and LinkedIn if you want to check them.
Definitely check it out. And also, his book is really good. Definitely worth a read. I think you can find it on Amazon, right?
Yes. I'll hold it up like QVC right now. Yeah, you can find it on Amazon if you type in the
By the way, you have to sign this today for me.
Okay.
Because you haven't done that last time.
Yeah, if you type in 5 pillars of effective public speaking to Amazon, it'll come up for you in paperback, audiobook, or ebook.
Good. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Pod Files. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe. Leave a review on iTunes, especially, because that really helps the algorithm push the podcast up in audio form. And obviously, subscribe on the YouTube channel, comment down below any questions you may have. Kyle, if you want to interact with our audience, you can definitely do that as well. And we're going to have other amazing guests from the creative space, from the creative industry. And we're going to have a lot more episodes to come. Thank you so much, and have a good day. Bye.